That tells me that when I take in these fats that do not dissolve in water, but in some way, I have to get them broken down into tubes. Actually, we break them down into single components, and they go into a cell where the cell constructs and uses them. So we take them in, and we have to break them down. But how can I break them down if they won't dissolve in water? How do I break down fats in my body? The process would give off some heat. We have something called bile salts. They are produced by the gallbladder. Bile, B-I-L-E, salts. And they simply act like soap. And they will help to break down what we consume. Now the problem becomes what we consume. In those lipids that are available to us as a food source, have you guys ever heard of something as being saturated or unsaturated? Okay? And which one should be the more healthy option? Our unsaturated. Maybe, possibly, depending on the source. When it's saturated, that means that lipid at room temperature is solid. So for example, butter. Wait a minute. What's better for you? Butter or margarine? What? Oh, there's butter. Butter is your better option. Margarine is terrible for you. Okay? Trust me on this. If you like, if margarine's what you use, take it, sit it outside, and watch what happens to it. Take butter, sit it out, watch what happens. Butter keeps everything together. Margarine turns into literally the plastic component part of it and a liquid. It's not good for you at all. So, saturated means that it is a solid at room temperature, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the worst, okay? If it says unsaturated, that means it's a liquid at room temperature. So a lot of times people think the unsaturated is better. Like, say for example, corn oil, olive oil, canola oil. All right? Which one do they kind of tell us is our better option? They tend to want to say olive oil and canola oil. Horrible. Horrible. All right? Olive oil, if you're going to, like, say, sprinkle it over a salad with, like, some balsamic vinegar, if you're doing it that way, yeah, okay. But you cook with it, it has a very low heat tolerance, and it literally breaks down into little component parts that are really toxic. And canola, oh my gosh, I have not read anything lately that's good about canola oil. And what's sad is a lot of people were told how good the canola was supposed to be if they have a heart condition, okay, and are trying to eat healthier. And everything they're finding now about canola has been wrong. And, you know, if you look at the oils that, say, for example, if you cook with them, you want to look at the oils that have a very high heat ability, because you don't want them breaking down. You want them to keep their component parts, okay? So avocado is one that keeps its abilities at high heat. Grapeseed does. If you look at walnut, these other oils are better than the ones that we've been told for so long were good. Now, here's the ones, i.e. margarine, that become a real problem. Some that help, until we learned how bad they were, but now you see a lot of things like on packaging, oh, no trans fat, no trans fat. Trans just simply means two molecules that could flip and be almost a mirror image, almost, so to speak, but in the body they react differently, and that was causing a lot of cardiovascular disease. With lipids, we want the lipids that the body can take in, break down, and then package, transport to the cell, and let the cell use them. So we're looking at the oils that are a little more plant-based, okay? Even though you might think of like the corn oil, safflower oil, and stuff like that, it's still better, okay, than some of the other choices, all right? But there are lots of healthy choices out there now. You just have to kind of research them, try them, and definitely use ones that are going to reduce that cardiovascular risk, meaning stuff like the high cholesterol, the hardening of the arteries, that sort of thing. And trans fats were definitely ones that were causing lots of cardiovascular disease. So our lipids, we are going to consume them. The goal is for the body to break them down and take that, because what we consume has 3 fatty tails. Take it, break them down, take one of those and let it transport to a cell that can use it. And it'll use it to make a double layer, the 2 fatty tails. So that's the goal. Now, ones that the body couldn't break down good are the ones that kind of stuck to arteries and so forth and created problems. Other types of lipids that you're going to encounter as you go into especially part 2 of A&P, you're going to come across eicosanoids. Just remember that that's a lipid when you get to talking about the cardiovascular system. Okay? I'm not going to go into that, just wanted to plan it so that you can carry it with you into part 2. Another reason that fats, now we have our wonderful adipose cells, okay, the fat cells of the body, where we're going to store these long-term storage of these products. And this is actually important, okay? Now, it's not important to have a huge buildup of adipose tissue, but it's important to have adipose tissue because some of the foodstuffs we take in and vitamins that you may take, which there's a lot of controversy around vitamins, these actually need that fatty cell material to break those vitamins down and get them into the blood. They're called fat-soluble vitamins. They're very important to the body. But then something else that's lipid based steroids. When you think about the testosterone, estrogen, the steroids of the body, they are lipid dependent. Okay, they are going to be based in the lipids.
So does that make you gain
The steroids. Now, depending on how you look at that, okay, in natural conditions, okay, where you're here as the baby, you grow up as a child, you become the teenager, you become the young adult, so on and so forth. But once you hit a certain age, for usually mid-20s into the 30s, depending on male or female, looking at estrogen versus testosterone, these are levels that are going to begin to change, and yes, they will have an effect because they are important in muscular structure, and that could change based on age, conditions, that sort of thing, and therefore, yes, you could end up gaining weight. But that is a normal condition. If it is any other issues where maybe there's an endocrine problem that will affect these hormones, yes. So it can be something that's also pathology based. Yeah. The other lipid that I tried to point out that is so important in our bodies, the phospholipid. So once again, we need to take in those lipids. We need to break them down. We need to get those component parts to the cell. We need to let the cell make the phospholipid. And those are extremely important to the cell membranes, which we're going to continue with in Chapter 3. The proteins, proteins are so important. Once again, we do not want to break them down for an energy source, but the building blocks of protein are amino acids. Amino acids, we're going to learn this a little bit more. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but there's 20 amino acids. Those amino acids string together, so you end up with an amino acid to another amino acid. They have all their names, okay? They're like listed. To an amino acid, to an amino acid. Do you happen to know what process in the cell gets amino acids to bond? It's called protein synthesis. We're going to see it. I don't know if we're going to see it in the next chapter or chapter 4. Can't remember. But when an amino acid is told by a gene on your chromosome to connect to another amino acid, the bond that gets formed is a peptide bond. So up till now, you have learned that we have our covalent bonds, ionic bonds, hydrogen bonds, and now you're learning we have peptide bonds. These are the bonds that exist between amino acids. Proteins have major jobs in the body. Regulation of those chemical reactions, the transport of substances, protection from the immune system, muscle contraction, structure, if needed, energy. Here's the deal.